Hello, everybody. Welcome to this awesome roundtable with two of the most beautiful women on the internet, the lovely Medyhne and the lovely Catherine. I've said it before. I know people get mad at me when I say this, but all of the women on this side of the board to me are just absolutely stunningly gorgeous. And I think it's because we're all just in the light. And so I am so honored to be here with my two friends, Medyhne and Catherine. Obviously, I always forget. I mean, I know we're in different countries because we have to coordinate time zones. But at this point, I feel like this situation we're in, it's so like we're all globally kind of together. So it doesn't even feel like we're really divided by nations anymore. It's just, good versus evil, so but we have Catherine in England. Obviously, it's very late over there. It's 4 o'clock in the afternoon here on the East Coast. And of course, we have Medyhne over in Australia, where she's time traveled. She's in a whole new day right now. Thursday morning. She's our time traveler. So, and Medyhne, I was telling Catherine this just to start off on some humor before we get started. Before you jumped on. Now, Catherine and I have spoken about off camera in our life before YouTube, and Catherine still does this, and I still do this occasionally. In the jobs we did, we never wore makeup. Catherine's outside a lot. I'm in hot, sweaty yoga shalas. So putting on makeup every day to be on YouTube was something new for me. And I had found this eyeliner that I really, really liked. And it's a really light, you can kind of see it's a light brown eyeliner. And for the last few days, I've been searching for this eyeliner because I'm about to run out of it. And I finally picked it up to see if I could find the brand. And it turns out it's a lip liner. I've been putting a lip liner on my eyes this whole time. So just a little humor to start off. If you can't laugh at yourself, then who can you laugh at? So anyway, how are you ladies doing?
Well, I've been, as you both know, that's why I haven't connected with you. I've missed the sort of last two things because I've not been very well and the whole family haven't been very well. And it's weird. It's one of the things I wanted to talk to you about, Jay, because it's really interesting to see people's perspectives to that and how people react to it and everything. It's quite hysterical, really. So, yes, if I'm looking a bit flushed, I've got a bit of a temperature still, but I'm really good in myself. And I've really enjoyed having a break from everything over Christmas. Not that I don't love it, but it's been really nice. I've sort of had a very electronic-free Christmas, and I think that's really done me a lot of good, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, I find that the energy, like the last 14 days, there've been all these portals opening of high vibrational energy coming through, and that's been huge. So we've all been integrating that, and that could also be, Catherine, maybe shifting some of the old stuff out to make way for the new energies. So I feel that we're all going through very intensive integration at the minute and recalibration of our energy, and that can present as all sorts of symptoms and headaches or being tired or whatever. So just really listening to your body at the moment and honoring your body and communicating with your body about what it needs and what it wants in order to get through this energetic shift that we're going through.
And I think, Catherine, did you freeze? Can you hear us? Let me text her quickly. Oh, hopefully she'll pop back on. Let me shoot her. Yeah. Shoot her a quick text. No, I love that, Medyhne, because we talk about that a lot in traditional yoga about, hold on, let me just text her quickly.
Well, yeah, it's very much a thing that people are intuitively feeling, and then they might be sort of thinking, oh, there's something wrong with me or whatever, but it's not, no. Necessarily that. And then on top of the individual feelings that you're feeling, you're getting the collective global energy of it as well. So everyone's collectively trying to, integrate it, and so they're sort of releasing stuff, and then you're also releasing stuff. So half the time you don't know what's yours and what someone else's anyway.
Exactly. No, the 3 karmas we're all working with that we talk about. And again, karma, guys, really, if you just break it down, karma is just action and reaction. It's your work. It's the work that you have to get through in this life. And we all have 3 karmas. One is your own personal karma, from past lives, if you believe in that, this life. Another is your DNA, your karma from your ancestors, because that is a part of your DNA. And then also the collective consciousness. So whatever timeline you're in, you're dealing with that. You can't separate yourself from everybody else. You're all going through that thing together. And what great what greater time to see that than right now when we're literally shifting everything. And, you know, my teacher in India used to get really excited. I've talked about this on my channel before, when you would get the yoga fever, like when you would get a fever, because it meant that your body was destroying old patterns. The fire of your body was breaking down old patterns to bring in new ones. And we have this weird, especially in the West, this weird kind of fear of sickness. You know,
isn't it? Because the minute you get a fever, you're encouraged by the pharmaceutical corporations to take a Panadol, which brings it down and allows you not to work through that spiritual shift so that you can evolve. So it actually prevents and puts a barricade against you moving forward on your spiritual journey.
Isn't that? I find that so fascinating, especially where we are right now. I mean, even viruses and stuff that when I was a kid, we got the chicken pox. There was no, you know, for the chicken pox. And I was telling the story the other day, my mother, I have a memory. I was probably in like the first grade. So 7 years old. And I remember my mother going on like a scavenger hunt to find a kid in my class who had the chicken pox so that I would go play with that kid and get the chicken pox and then give it to my sister.
To my partner as well. He was encouraged to go and play with the kids that all had the chicken pox as well, so that they could actually build immunity within their system.
Yeah. And that's so that was where as kids we came from. And I know that when I was born in 1983, so I know that I was like the last generation to only get a few of that after it started doubling and doubling and doubling. You guys know what we're talking about. So I feel like my generation was one of the last to actually have that real true initiation into being a human and having your DNA develop. Because, you know, I mean, my grandfather was a surgeon and he used to tell my mother to let me go get dirty. Let me put mud in my mouth.
Go and play in the mud. That's right. Oh, I mean, that's so important for kids today. And of course, there's so much on the technology that they find it quite alien sometimes to just get dirty.
I know. I know. It's, you know, and there's that funny story from the Hindu text of Krishna, who the Christ for the Bhagavad-Gita, one of their avatars, when he was a child, he was Govinda. And there's that story of, you know, Govinda putting mud in his mouth as kids do. And animals do it too. It's part of learning. And the mother comes to like take the mud out of his mouth and she sees the whole universe inside. But even in the Hindu text, they're talking about allowing, you know, the human body to be activated, allowing the nervous system to be activated, allowing the immune system to be activated in order to change and shift. And so, you know, the more it's like once you see it, you can't unsee it. Like you realize what's been done to us to try to keep us at this lower vibrational frequency instead of allowing our DNA to grow into what it should be, the consciousness it should be.
I couldn't say it better. One of my favorite books that I've ever read is Biography of a Yogi, you know, Yogananda.
Yeah,
I love that. It's so incredible. Like, it just makes you want to go straight to India when you read that book. So I have to ask you a question. When you read the book, did you have visions of him? Did he come to you? Yes. I couldn't physically see him per se, but I could feel the energy, and I felt a lot of sort of things happening that were very metaphysical, you know, after reading the book. Oh, you know, wow. Spiritual shifts and energy and all that sort of thing. Yeah. Catherine just texted and said her mother had switched off the internet, so she's going to come back on soon. So here she is. Good. No, I definitely, that happens when you read the autobiography of a yogi. Many people will have a spiritual experience with Yogananda. So, so that's why I had to ask. Hello.
Hi. I'm at my mum's house and she forgot I was doing the video and she switched the internet off for the night. And I was.
No, Catherine, as an adult, when you guys are at your parents' house, do you revert back to being like 16 again? I always feel that way at my mom's house. Like I'm 16 again.
I was like, what are you doing? You've just cut off my video. She's like, sorry, anyway, carry on, ladies. I'm back with you now.
We were talking about the importance of you have been sick, about being sick and allowing your body to kind of flush out these patterns and how we've kind of been taught that especially of late, that being sick is wrong. And I was saying in the East, like my teacher in India gets very excited when you get the yoga fever, that your body is actually reacting to the work you're doing in order to burn away. You think about nature, like forest fires, like real forest fires, not, you guys know what we're talking about, but the real ones. Nature will do that to itself to cleanse itself. And that's what our human body does too. And I was saying, Catherine, like when I was a kid with the chicken pox, my mother went on a scavenger hunt to find a kid in my class who had had the chicken pox so that I would go play with him and get the chicken pox. And it's amazing in such a short amount of time how that perception has shifted to now it's like we're not allowed to get sick, you know?
It's lost knowledge, I think, you know, that has been sort of hidden from us and lost. And we need to tap into all those natural ways, you know, and that includes all, you know, the herbs and everything to naturally tap into that to fix this, a solution for absolutely everything. And often in nature they're together, like you'll find something that poisons you, and then next to that will be something that detoxes that, or, you know, and they're often together in nature. So we just need to go back to those roots.
How our ancestors knew how to do it, didn't they?
Yeah. I'm a herbalist, and I work exactly with that, with animals and humans, but with something self-medication. And it's amazing when you look at it. And don't you think it's a real reflection of where we're at, where this whole mentality of wanting to suppress everything? And it's like, it's really important to cleanse out the toxins, sort of renew it. It makes me laugh because I've been thinking of doing a water fast for a while, and now I've had an enforced one. But it's
so be careful what you wish for.
If you don't listen enough, they'll give it. But we don't want to suppress things. It's a natural cycle of life, isn't it, to go through healing stages. And I think I've just been absolutely horrified by, I don't know sort of how much you covered this, Brice, but on both sides. So you've got on one side everyone's saying, oh my God, it's not, you know, what is it? And I'm like, well, what does it matter if it is? If you're ill, it is. What does it matter what the label is? Because most diseases are just man-made labels that the root cause is the same anyway. But then you've got on the other side of things, the sort of more the true type of things are like, oh, well, I'm not ill because I do this and I do that. And it's hysterical, isn't it? I think I've been noticing on both sides a lot of ego sort of kicking in, and sort of like, oh, well, not me because I'm this and I'm session of this. And you're just like, let life go through phases, let it go through the ups and downs. You know, in nature, there's a reason why they say you do a detox as the leaves come off the trees and as the leaves go on the trees, to cleanse your body out of the stuff. So I found it quite fascinating, although I would use the word irritating at the same time.
You can really block your progress, can't you, when you're just really striving really hard to stay basically stagnant, because you don't want to change the status quo. But, you know, and we'll do anything as human beings to avoid pain and to avoid anything uncomfortable. But, you know, when you surrender that and you allow yourself to be in the actual flow of what the universe brings for your highest good, then you're going to be experiencing more, you know, the more souls that are sort of, I guess, without judgment, you know, at a higher level, that they go through more challenges in life, because that's part of the spiritual learnings. And so, yeah, just sort of releasing judgment and surrendering and letting go, letting God.
Yeah. You know, it's so funny. You sound just like me when I teach my classes, because I teach traditional yoga. It's very different perception than like what you see in the Western world. And that's something I say all the time, is allowing yourself to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. And my original teacher, before I started going to India, a man named David Grieg up in Philadelphia, I would fly to Philadelphia to practice with him before I started going to India. And he had the same teacher as I, from the same lineage. And he said, you know, the practice that we do of Ashtanga, it can be very painful. You're looking at putting legs behind your head, deep back bending. It pulls up a lot of emotional stuff. I mean, that's the whole point of the postures, is to pull that stuff out of you so that you can examine it. And my teacher asked the group, we call him Guruji, Guruji, is it necessary for this practice to be so painful? And Guruji said, yes, because pain is real. Pain is real.
And it shifts you through things like, you know, otherwise you just don't challenge yourself. You don't want to extend yourself to go further than where you already are. Right. You know, there's a lot of fear with that. It's about transmuting fear, isn't it, as well?
Yeah. Faults of my teacher in India, that's what you see. He walks around the room. He's like, wife fearing, you know, and you're like, why am I fearing? Why am I love in India, they put the like pain, they'll say why painting, like they put the ing on everywhere. I love it. But yeah, it comes down to you breaking that down. And one thing too, that we know from the practice, you know, for me, my hamstrings are pretty open, my hips are pretty open. So some of the postures like leg behind the head or deep forward folding was never really hard for me. And so my mind would kind of drift in those easier postures for me. But back bending was where shit got real for me, excuse my language. But a teacher said to me once, but think about that. The areas where things are hard, where's your mind in those areas? Your mind is present. Your mind is present in the moment. So what are you figuring out in this area? You're present there.
Because you'll be holding things in your back because that's where you store energy that perhaps is difficult to shift through. And everyone will be different. You know, some people might have it in their organs or their legs or whatever. And it depends on the person. So it's really, I think, helpful to go to the parts of the body where you are holding that energy and, you know, going in and seeing what is stored at a cellular level in your body at that point and then transmuting it. I mean, I had a client contact me the other day and she said, look, you know, I've had some stuff come up with my kidneys. What are kidneys about? And I encouraged her to really research what the kidneys represent. You know, look at the Louise Hay metaphysical work of what do the kidneys hold? What are the affirmations that you can use for that? And what experiences have you had in this incarnation where you have held on to that energy in your kidneys and not allowed it to flow through? And so, you know, it's really having that communication with your body and understanding that your body's here to try and help you. And it's just a messenger. And the other thing is that fear is false evidence appearing real. It's not actually anything to be concerned about. But again, it's a messenger. Yeah.
And your kidneys are tied to the knees too. So if people have knee issues, sometimes that's coming back up to the kidneys as well. And yeah, it's nothing to be afraid of. Like this, like being sick, in my opinion, being sick is nothing to be afraid of. It's anytime, again, with fevers and congestion and all that kind of stuff, sometimes that's just a sign that you're evolving, that your DNA is actually evolving in this life.
Taking new bits into it and incorporating that in and going for the next level of the upgrade. And also it really forces you to reevaluate things and take stock and sort of think, right, look at my diet, look at my lifestyle. Did I need a break? Do I need to turn off electronics for a while? All sorts of things to actually enable you to really look at things. So it's got so many benefits. And yes, you can, of course, help your body out of it. And that's really great to put in all these different tools and techniques to make sure that it doesn't escalate to an area that is going to cause trouble. But this constant wanting to resist anything, you know, it's
escapism.
It's really a problem, I think, at the moment. And I think what's really a problem is the fact that people feel once they've labelled something, it changes the actual thing. So take if I'm feeling ill. Well, it doesn't change what's happening with my body, what labels people put on that. And yet it does to most people, because you're then slipping into the fear road. And if it then gets labelled with something else, like, you know what, we're not allowed to say on here, then suddenly everyone's perceptions changes, and that's going to change the way that your body responds to it. And then you're on this vicious circle.
It's like when you have young people and they say, oh, that person's ADHD, blah, 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 blah. You know, the way I look at that or translate that is this person has a different energy. This person has an energy of the fifth dimensional realm. And so they act, that they function differently and they're in the world in a different way. And so, you know, these labels tend to be very derogatory and disempowering. And so that's a great point, Catherine. I think that, you know, releasing these labels, because the labels put us in a box and limit us.
They're very matrix driven. You know, I've thought about this before too, like about, you know, I went to a private school, and of course I think things are, I mean, I graduated from high school 20 years ago, so I'm sure it's very different now. But even when I was a kid, they were constantly testing us, constantly testing us. And so they were like separating kids, separating them by like what came up on their test results, which some people just don't test well, but they're super intelligent. And so I think from a very young age, you're right. We're just labeling things, and it's even with sicknesses, it's putting people in these jail cells of their mind where they can't break free of that. When, I mean, the same thing happened to Todd. He was told he was ADD as a child, but one of his gurus told him he was just born with more prana, more energy.
Exactly.
You know,
exactly. And they often function quite fast in the world, because it's a different energy that functions very at its highest potential in the fifth dimensional energies, but in the 3D it doesn't really adapt as well, because the 3D is so dense, and it can't it finds it hard to be able to express itself in that reality.
Yep. That's exactly it. That's exactly it. He, as a teenager, actually, when he lived in London, he found skateboarding and started finding ways to maneuver it, and then ended up moving to India. And that, you know, so that prana was there for a reason, but they wanted to like dumb it down with medication, basically, you know. But yeah, I think that's something moving into the new earth, the new timeline. We have to reconsider all of this. And I think our ancestors knew this. I think our ancestors were very tapped into this.
Yes. And Catherine's animals. I bet all your animals know all this, Catherine.
Yeah, that's an interesting thing, because one of the things that, a few of the things that I have been listening to recently with some interviews, and it's a constant theme that comes up, and I was mentioning to Brice just before we started actually, about this perception, even in the spiritual world or the awake world, but that everything revolves around the human race, which I find really, really fascinating, because it is really, I've been listening to a lot, and it's all about almost how the whole planet is affected by the humans, how the, you know, obviously looking into our DNA, looking into our ancestry and everything. But what they don't realise is that applies to every living thing on the earth. And if you really truly believe that everything is all interconnected, well, that's just not humans. That's also rocks, that's plants, that's every animal, that's the earth, it's the microorganisms living in the earth. And I've been giving a lot of thought to this sort of, how can I explain it? This sort of,
I think there's a word for that, human-centric or something.
Yeah, but it's really fascinating, and I do see it a lot in the spiritual community, in the awake community, and I do feel we're missing a trick. I think if we took the focus off us as a species completely. Now, that doesn't mean that we don't embrace all the gifts and all the wonderful abilities that we have got and that we can bring to the whole bigger picture and our role on the planet. But I just find it's quite limiting for me to see how much people are saying it is the world according to humans and everything else is virtually just here to please us.
It's like a little kid, isn't it? Like little kids, you know, when the whole universe revolves around them. Actually, I've got a poem about that. Later.
Oh, I can't wait to hear that.
Yeah, that actually segues quite nicely into that. But you know, little kids, they just think everything is about them, and so when you have a level of emotional immaturity or immaturity, you as a human being on the spiritual path, you still see yourself as the center of everything. Shall I read this poem now?
Yes, please do.
It's really funny how you mentioned that, because it's exactly what this poem's about. You know, when teenagers and kids think that you know the world revolves around them and that they know everything.
Oh yeah.
And it's from my book called Hilarious Poems. So I'll just show you. Oh, I can't share that. That's all right.
You want me to just also say there's quite a few adults that we know that have that attitude as well.
That's right.
Medyhne, I think you can share now if you want to.
Oh, thank you. It's just so people can see what the cover is. It is a book that I wrote called Hilarious Poems, and on the cover I wrote by a 6-year-old adult, because, you know, a lot of kids really relate to that when you say that. And it was illustrated by a guy in Australia called Mark Payne, who's the most incredible illustrator. And so I was really gifted to have that. But I'll just read you one of the poems. It's available on my website if anyone wants to get a copy. But it's really fun, and it's a lot of light relief at the moment in the midst of everything we're going through, when you can have a good laugh. But this is called I Am a Child Genius. I am a child genius. Everyone says so. If any questions, I am sure to know. Some call it destiny, some call it fate. Being so intelligent, it's hard to get a date. Simply no subject exists in which I have no clue. It's bound to be frustrating when I know much more than you. I will be famous shortly for what I cannot tell, but guaranteed in future years you'll know my name quite well. Architecture a snap, maths fun and games, geography easy, I never forget names, literature a breeze, stock market kids play. If I was not so bored with it, I'd play it every day. I'm told to run for politics, a threat to any side. How can I be a candidate when I have never lied? A real child prodigy I immodestly implore. There's 1 or 2 in history, or maybe 3, no more. Einstein, an amateur, as far as I can see, reading his life story, knew much less than me. Not one to brag or boast, I have no more to tell, for humble. I've never ring my bell.
You cut off right at the end there. I was like, oh no, did Medyhne's mom cut the internet off too? Read the last couple of lines, Medyhne, because we missed the last couple of lines.
Oh, really? Oh, no.
Yeah, you cut out right at the end. I was like, oh no, Medyhne's mom shut the internet off too.
But that was meant to be like a sort of a momentum building. I'll read that last. Was it just the last verse?
Last 2 lines.
Last 2 lines that you cut out on.
Okay, so not the one to brag or boast, I have no more to tell. For humble to the very last, I never ring my bell.
Well, honestly, I can definitely think of some adults that this applies to too.
There's some people I seriously want to be like, isn't it exhausting knowing everything? Like, just, you know, isn't it exhausting just knowing everything? But isn't that like the height of, my teachers say the height of spirituality is humor, is being able to laugh at yourself and laugh at the situations. But I also think the height of spiritual awareness is knowing you don't know anything, that you really have no clue about anything, you know, and that,
especially learning that now with everything unfolding and knowing that the way that history has been taught to us is probably all just a load of baloney. Wow.
I mean, right. I think I said last time, like if you had told me 5 years, I would be questioning what our planet looked like. I would have told you I was crazy. And at this point, I'm like, no idea what we're standing on. No fucking clue what we're standing on right now. And I'm okay with that because you know what? We're still standing. So But knowing that, having that sense of humility where you can accept you don't know anything requires you to also have courage and have faith in that unknown. And that's hard for people.
And it takes self-worth to say you don't know anything. Because when you have to sort of say, I know everything, there's a sort of an insecurity in that, or a lack of feeling like you're worthy enough to be able to say that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's sort of like an inverted thing.
Yeah, sorry for the delay. But yeah, that's such an important point because you've got to always be open to the fact that there's something at any minute, another bit of information can drop, which could completely change the way you view everything. And I think most people watching this video will have been through so many moments like that over the past few years. And for a lot of people, a lot longer. But also that there's a reason why you're not meant to know everything all at once. You know, if you picked up a good book or at the start of a film and went straight to the ending, there'd be no point. You know, it's a bit of a cliche, but it is all about the journey and how you evolve and what you do with the information and how open you feel. Because even when you look at things like friendships and things, it's amazing how people will put ego before friendship by not keeping that open mind, and can throw away something so priceless. And I watched this weekend, I don't know if either of you two have seen it yet, the film Don't Look Up.
Not yet, no, but I'm going to be watching it.
We were thinking we might do like a book club review of it, Medyhne, if you're interested. So we will watch it and then do an online review, because there's so many fascinating things in it. And I won't give any of it away for those of you that haven't seen it, but it's an absolutely fascinating film. It's really interesting because if you look at the stars that are in there, Jennifer Lawrence, Leonardo DiCaprio, Meryl Streep, then you're thinking, well, this is interesting. You've got this film on this subject with this cast sort of in there. But you've got to keep an open mind, because when you look and follow the storyline, and there's so much in it, it's absolutely fascinating when you look at what's going on at the moment. It really is. Now, I'm sure lots of people that don't understand what's going on would just think, oh, just an interesting film. But when you look at it with a bit of knowledge of the lies, the complete fabrication, the changing of history, the manipulation, it's absolutely priceless, I tell you.
Oh, that sounds fantastic. The point that you made earlier too, that, you know, we're just wanting to rush through this process of this transition, and we just want to get to the end. And, you know, people are saying, oh, I can't wait till it's over, da, da, da. And you're actually not in the present moment, and you're not experiencing the journey. And so that's a real spiritual mastery test, when you're doing something, again, that's uncomfortable, but you're able to be in the moment and take everything in a present moment out of the journey in the now, even if it's a journey that you don't particularly like, or it's uncomfortable. Because I just hear so many people saying, oh, I can't wait till this is over. I want it to finish. I want to get to the good world, you know, the new earth, and I want to get through all this stuff. So yeah, I think that's a real test for us at the minute.
It's interesting you say that, because one of my favorite, most life-changing books I ever read, and a lot of people have read this, is the Bhagavad-Gita. And I was actually showing, this is my favorite commentary by Ram Dass on the Bhagavad-Gita, the best commentary out there. And the Bhagavad-Gita is basically that. You know, it's the story of Arjuna, who's basically standing on a battlefield, and he's on the front line, and he's looking across at the opposing side, and he's seeing people that he's loved in his life, his friends, his teacher, his family. And he's having this like, oh crap, come to Jesus moment in this split second. And then Krishna is the avatar who has this conversation with him in this moment. And it kind of, as you're saying, this uncomfortable time where he's having to go, you know, battle people he loves. In that moment, he comes down and has this conversation with Krishna, who is one of the avatars of God. And basically, if he hadn't have taken that moment, there wouldn't be so much, even though it's just a story, so much enlightening information where, you know, and that's also in the Bhagavad Gita. People often think that all of yoga and spirituality is just light and love, but it's not. There's a darkness to it as well. And yes, that's what Krishna tells Arjuna, like, you're a warrior, buck up and go war. Like, this is your dharma.
Well, the funniest thing is, the most amazing synchronicity, I have a quote here that I was going to share today by Ram Dass.
I love it. Yeah, okay, yes, he's my favorite, Ram Dass.
It's amazing. It's on my computer ready to share. And this is it here. And I just thought it's a classic. Oh, yes. We're talking about uncomfortable things. If you think you're enlightened, go spend a week with your family. So a lot of people have just experienced this at the minute through the Christmas period. And I mean, that's the ultimate test, isn't it? Because often these family situations are, you know, often karmic, you know, ones that we're to work through. And so I just thought that's so relevant to everything we're talking about.
I know,
and it was right on my screen.
Ram Dass, all of his books are fantastic. He left the earth plane like right before, I think it was like December of 2019, like right before everything kicked off. But people on my channel know I often quote, we're all just walking each other home, which is a Ram Dass quote. We're all going to the same light, you know, we're all going to the same place. So Catherine talking about the ego, if you really sit back and think, we're all, not just humans, but animals, nature, everything that has that spark of consciousness, we're all going home. We're all headed to the same home. So why do we have to have this arrogance? Why do we have to hold
hands Why can't we hold hands and do it together, you know, in a united way, as opposed to, you know, finding every little thing. I mean, I just posted a video about the originals, how basically that they've put a cease and desist letter on the Parliament in Australia, which basically means that it's not a functioning entity anymore, the Parliament or the government in Australia, because, you know, they've just done that. And I put a post about that. It was a huge announcement, huge news. And there was 3 comments on the YouTube site saying, "Oh, I didn't like the sound. The sound wasn't good." I thought, what does it matter about the sound? Look at the announcement that I've just put on here. You know?
That sums up perfectly the Don't Look Out film. So I think we should make a date to all watch it and then do a review of it, because when you see it, you will, what you've just said then, it's like we as humans spend so much time focusing on completely irrelevant, unimportant things.
Yes.
And completely often
it's the big picture.
And it is, as I say, I won't say any more about it because of anyone, it's difficult someone watching it, but you see that film and you're just like, this is hysterical and very clever for that reason. It's like, how much more of an obvious example can you get about completely missing the whole point of life? So
it's funny when you guys were talking about a few minutes ago, we were talking about like not being okay with not knowing anything. I got this image in my head, and we see this image a lot of like birds kept in cages, and then the door opens and they won't leave the cage. And it's almost like for our whole lives as humans, we've been put in this cage that's been drained into us through, or drilled into us through, you know, school, society, of what is reality and what is not, that we almost like keep ourselves in this cage. And it's almost like being able to say, well, I don't know what anything is, at that door opening to let you then leave the cage, if that makes sense, you know. And that's the freedom of saying, I don't know. I have no idea what we're standing on. I have no idea, like, really, and we know this is good versus evil, but that's about all we know at this point. And I think a part of this great awakening is finding that sovereignty, being able to stand up on your own 2 feet. And sometimes that is saying, I don't know. And I can go and listen to all these people give their opinions and still be content being in a place that I don't know. You know,
exactly.
So
tapping into the depths of the human spirit, because, you know, these are unnavigated waters that we've never charted before. And so, you know, tapping into our spiritual, our inner core is something that many people aren't used to, because they're used to being told what to do, and also living externally based on the external circumstances. So asking everyone to flip that around and just go within and navigate from a different place, which is in truth, you have all universal knowledge within you anyway. And so it's redefining our whole way of being in the world, our whole existence, everything.
Yeah. And it's funny, we're talking about like the arrogance. Sometimes I think that arrogance that people show is actually comes from a place of fear.
Yes.
That they're wrong.
Yeah.
And so
that's like if you have a superiority complex, you're actually more feeling more insecure and unworthy than someone who has an inferiority complex, which is really interesting.
Yeah, that is really interesting. Yeah. Well, sorry, go ahead, Catherine.
I was just going to say that arrogance, it's amazing how difficult humans find it to say sorry. Now, again, if you watch animals interacting and having fights or things like this, they have very clear submission and sort of apologies to each other. And it's not something that they find difficult at all. It's completely natural. And it's really fascinating to see how difficult it is for most humans to either say sorry or say I was wrong, or to say, you know, to admit that they could have behaved in a different way. And I find that so fascinating as to why do we find it so difficult? You know, we've got these, I think it's that cage that you were saying about, Brice, about the bird cage and things. It's like, if you've been told you are this, and that's been embedded into you for so much of your life, it's then very, very difficult for people to sort of step outside of that. And I see it a lot with my children, who are sort of well, actually, my daughter was 20 yesterday, so I have no more teenagers in the house, but 20 and 21. And it's just amazing how many people that are talking about the family thing. Every single conversation from grandparents and things like that is like, well, what are your plans? What are you going to do with your life? What are you going to do this? Oh, you can't do that because you've got to do something responsible. And I mean, I'm sitting there listening to those conversations. And I can't quite believe what I'm hearing, but that is coming from all sort of older people. It's like, you know, there's this expectations of everything. And I'm thinking, it's so sad. You can see why people find it so difficult to actually then have the courage to say, I'm going to try something completely different. And if I make a mistake and I don't like it, I'm quite prepared to then try something else.
Yeah. And, you know, as you are saying that, I was thinking, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to ask, Catherine, do you think that ability that animals have to be able to, you know, say sorry in their own way is a lack of ego? Do you think it boils down to that, Catherine?
I do. I think it is. I do not see ego in animals. And I even see it in the human animal interaction as well. So one of my ponies, Romeo, is absolutely hysterical. He's the most communicative horse I've ever known. And we have some, you know, we're quite similar personality-wise. And he can really tell me off, for example, if I'm being disrespectful and I'm with him and I'm on my phone to someone or something like that and not giving him his attention. But equally, sometimes he can be disrespectful back to me, and I can sit there and have a conversation with him, and you can just see it all melt away, and you can see him going, oh, yeah, okay, yeah, I shouldn't have done that. I mean, I'm not exaggerating at all, and it dissolves away like this, and there's no resistance to it. And what's interesting is I, as a human, find it really easy to let go of any ego when I'm interacting with animals, much easier than I do when I'm interacting with human animals.
Yeah.
Because they're a mirror, because they're reflecting back, you know, their own energy. And yeah, so it's like we're chameleons. We try to adapt to whatever situation we're in. So when we're with humans, we act like humans. With animals, we act like animals. Yeah.
I think some of that has come through survival too. You know, you're talking about your daughter being, happy birthday to your daughter, by the way, being 20, which is still like so young. That's still like, you're still kind of a baby at 20, and having all these like huge questions asked of her that are very, very serious questions. And, you know, I was thinking about here, and especially, I think this is probably a problem all over the Western world, where more and more kids are getting to more and more debt because they feel like they have to keep up with this certain standard that is expected of them. You know, we had like keeping up with the Joneses, you know, and this cycle starts to happen. And I think, yes, showing that vulnerability of being like, I was wrong, I apologize, or saying, I don't know, all of a sudden puts you in this place of major fear of not surviving. If you're a young person in Australia, you can just throw the idea of buying a house out the window. It's just so ridiculously expensive here anywhere to buy a house. It's just not really a viable option for young people anyway these days. So, you know, it's not something that's a realistic goal anymore. Yeah, it's still the same. Yeah, I just saw someone posted earlier, like in the 1950s in America, you know, a family of 4, 2 parents and 2 kids could buy a house, send the kids to college, have cars, all on one salary. So we're seeing that, and that wasn't that long ago. You know, we're seeing this like this entrapment that, and you know, the thing is like, if we talk about what's happening now, the 99% versus the 1%, there are more of us than them. So we've allowed this to happen. Yeah. We stayed in that birdcage. Yeah, not flown out.
But just being compliant and passive, and on some level too, that they meet our needs to a certain degree, so that we're comfortable, or we have a certain level of quality of life, and so we don't stand up and change anything, or we don't make a noise because we're managing, okay, you know, and it's sort of been set up that way as well. I know in Australia people say, you know, that they've given us a certain quality of life here so that, you know, they can continue with all the nefarious stuff that's going on underneath while we just coast along, you know.
Yes, yeah.
It's very difficult when you're caught in that trap to make the time to actually even dream. I mean, I know a lot of people that if you ask an adult and sort of say, what would your dream life look like? What's your real passion? They find it.
They never know. I don't know, do they?
No, because it's so drummed out of them that you can even follow your passion. Yeah. But one of the things I find quite interesting on this sort of note, sort of linking it back a bit, is a lot of the conversations. So we talk about sort of moving into the age of Aquarius and the new way of doing things. And I've loved all the chats. A lot of people really valuing what I would call traditional skills, you know, building, plumbing, farming, mechanic, all the things that academics can frown on, realizing these are the skills that are so important to not only survival, but thriving and having a really thriving community. But I'm still surprised at a lot of the focus that there is on the financial side of things in a lot of these talks, because you know, okay, there's so many different things you can look in. You know, there's the precious metals, there's the cryptos, there's all things like this. But isn't it funny how it's very difficult for most humans to distance themselves from the focus of the finances?
Right.
Even though all we've been through this year, it still seems to be something that it's very difficult for people to distance themselves away.
That's part of the enslavement system that has been indoctrinated into them, that this is their security. This is their, you know, when you think of the chakras, it's the base chakra of their foundation of existence. And so, you know, that's all been a definite ploy by the dark. And you know, once the whole money system goes and we function differently, that's part of stepping out of this whole imprisonment system. And you know, I'm looking forward to that myself. It'll be great.
I know, I couldn't agree. I know I'm not like a money person. Like that's not even before. I mean, I don't understand the stock market. I don't understand. Like that's just not. It's like, you know, the subjects that you think about, the peanuts, when the adults would talk, wah, 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 wah. Anytime anybody talks about like anything having to do with that, it's just wah, 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 wah. Like it just doesn't, you know, I want to talk about philosophy and art and all that kind of stuff. But that's confused me because, and granted, again, I don't know what the new money system is going to look like. There's a lot of respected people and I hear what they have to say. And it does sound like we're moving in. We know that the old system has to go down because it's associated with the old system. But it sounds to me, from what I understand, is that we're all going to be okay.
Yeah.
We're going to have our needs taken care of.
Totally.
So why are we still trying to play the money system in the new world like we played it in the old world?
Exactly.
Doesn't make sense to me.
Spot on.
I think it's a real trap. I think it is very difficult to step out of that box, because you're right, and you know, we have all been so trapped by it, or a lot of us have allowed ourselves to be trapped by it. But at some stage, we've got to step into that trust and stop focusing, because if we're all, you know, there's all this talk about, you know, accumulating wealth for future generations and things like this. And it's like, that is so the old system. This is so the old system. And yet, you know, I think it's really important that somehow we break free of it. And even like, you know, one of my, it's not New Year yet, but one of my New Year's resolutions is I refuse to talk about, and the V word, I just refuse to engage in those conversations with people today. I cannot tell you how many times I've had to shut down that conversation. But I think we just got to, the more we all practice it, of moving into these new ways of doing, surely that's going to move us forward in that direction a lot quicker.
Yeah,
a perfect way to go forward, I think, is to think about, what does the world need? You know, what unique gifts and skills have I got that can match the need in the world, the demand in the world? How can I give to the world? And if you naturally give to the world in the way that it needs you, then all your needs will be met, because it's an energetic thing. You know, that the energy will come back to you in the way that's appropriate. And the more you give in the world, the more that you meet the demands of what the world needs, the more that flow will come back to you. And that's the way we've got to think about things now. You know, is there a person down the street that needs something? You know, what can I do to support them so that they get their needs? And maybe there's someone else in the same boat that needs that. You know, just being really open to how this new world is going to look, and what are the demands required for really creating a foundation for a new earth that supports everyone.
Yeah, I agree. There's a verse in the Bible my mother used to say to us all the time when we were kids. She would make us go work the soup kitchen, and she would always say, to whom much is given, much is expected. And so when we think about wealth, we oftentimes think about money, but wealth is also your spiritual knowledge, your intelligence. And I know for those of us, you know, when the plug is pulled, which we don't know when that's going to happen, a lot of us do want that like vindication of like, I was right, you know. But on the flip side, to whom much is given, much is expected. All of us have been in this unique situation where we figured things out or understood that something was happening a lot earlier than our fellow humans. And so we're going to have to really help people and tuck our pride away and be there to hold their hand, like to give back to them, even the ones that we can't stand because they've been not nice to us, but to be there and to be that wealth of support for them. And so it moves out of that whole idea of like money being the only wealth, you know, and just your essence of who you are as a fragment of the cosmos, you know.
What you can contribute to that. You know, I mean, I've been thinking, I've had quite a few clients saying to me, I feel very isolated and alone. So I'm thinking, well, how can I help resolve that? And I'm thinking, well, maybe starting up online groups for people. And I was thinking of names where people can come together and support and nurture one another and help, you know, really develop their own divine soul missions and their inherent gifts and bring them out into the world. You know, groups that can do that on an online way. If anyone's interested, contact me, because I'd love to, you know, start up. And I've had people asking me about this, and it's trying to match a need that's out there.
Yeah. Well, I think too, you know, we were kind of talking about that, like all these, you know, I think a lot of people when the plug is pulled, just, they have no clue who they actually are because they've been so beaten down by who they should be that they can't remember who they are. And so the first step would be giving them space to actually rediscover themselves and rediscover their soul in their body. Because I know that sounds silly, but from my time as a yoga student and teacher, so many people are just, they're just out of their body all the time.
Yes.
They don't even know what's going on with them.
Actually, earlier I got a message to mention that, which is just to sit and I know it sounds weird, but just sit in a darkened room and just be still and just see what happens. You know, turn the lights off, make sure that all sort of interruptions are, you know, turn your phone off, all that sort of thing, and just sit in a darkened room and just be still and see what comes to you in that space, because our nervous systems are so overstimulated that just the ability to be still and have zero stimulation, you're going to start connecting on the inner. And I got that message earlier. I think Catherine was talking to mention it. So yeah,
no, it's so important, and it's one of the biggest gifts that it's been from not being well for the last couple of weeks, has been exactly that, because I'm the type of person, there's so many things I love doing that I'm sort of quite busy because I love doing the animals and I love my work and I love mixing with my friends. So, you know, there's so many things I love doing it, but what I have to make more time for is that stillness and sitting there. And I have had such a complete electronic detox over Christmas. I've had some real awakening moments about, okay. And also the other thing is, it's you can see why they say time is a healer, because we were talking at the start about all of us, and I've definitely said it on numerous occasions, that, you know, oh, come on, we want this to hurry up, we want it to be over. And I can see some of that, because I know a lot of people, myself included, where some family members are still being very actively forced for this, and they're resisting, but the resistance gets harder and harder the longer you leave it in some of their circumstances. So I can see why speeding up is really important to that. But for me, for example, one of the biggest things I've learned since I've got older is to wait before responding. And what this has taught us all to do is to wait stop, and feel into the situation more and educate ourselves more and do some alternative research and does this make sense or not? I mean, I had a brilliant interview with Cliff High. I mean, all these are brilliant, but, you know, he was saying, well, you know, when you take the Mr. T thing, you know, is he an idiot? No. Is there this? So, you know, stop trying to sort of microanalyze every single word and think, trust, there's a reason for this. There's a reason for this, because so this forced delay in everything, certainly everyone I've been speaking to of this, you can really see how it has benefited everyone by not, you know, as they say, what is it, rushing with haste, repent at your leisure or whatever. It's so important sometimes just to stall and just wait.
One of the greatest spiritual tests is patience. Absolutely. Like throughout my life, it's like a constant learning, patience. When you're a cosmic being and you're used to being on other planetary systems, you manifest things like this, you know, boom, and they happen. You come here into the 3D dense reality and everything's like walking through, you know, mud. It's so slow. And you just have to continually be learning. For me, you know, that lesson of patience, release attachment, release expectation, just, you know, trust that it's all going to be perfect in divine alignment.
So funny you say that, because down here in the South, the southeastern part of the United States, the deep South, my accent isn't as strong compared to some. So people talk real slow. They have a very Southern drawl. And the weather out here is like, it's like walking through a bowl of hot soup because it's so humid. So we say that's why people talk slow, because it's just too damn hot to talk fast. So you got to channel your inner Southerner and be like, it's too damn hot to talk fast, so we're just going to take this slow. But yeah, it is that and I love how you said the release of expectation. Catherine and I have talked about this before, and I love how you said that the guy said once, I didn't break your heart, I broke your expectation.
Yeah. You know, so true and so powerful, because we've all got so many expectations, and often we don't even know. I mean, I can think of things with friends recently where I didn't even realize I had the expectations until they got broken. Yeah. And then, you know, and this is, you know, again, one of life's constant learning lessons is that we do have these expectations and things, but we've got to realize those are our expectations and they're not going to necessarily match other people's.
You know, the interesting thing is, because that's happened to me so many times in my life, I'm sure everybody, where you expect something different, a different outcome than what you get. But it's interesting at looking back, even when you're going through something stressful where your expectations been broken, if you can take a moment to look back on your life where you've been very disappointed by your expectations not being met, normally that leads you to an even better outcome that you never could have planned, you know? So even in that little scenario, just to let go of knowing, of having an expectation of what's to come, when's to come, how's to come, because none of us know anything, but we know it is coming because it's astrological. You can't escape it. So release the expectation, you know, work on yourself. And I think a lot of people with the Mr. T thing too, they still are in this like matrix based seat where they want someone else to do it for them. They're expecting someone else to do it for them. And that might be why we're delayed.
Yeah, and they have to agree with it. So it's like, you know, it shouldn't make any difference what he says about that. It's like we were saying about the financial. That's so the old way. I like to say so 3D. But, you know, it's so the old way of doing things. And it's like we have to break this pattern of needing to be told what to do. It's brilliant listening to stimulating conversations. I mean, I've listened to all sorts of things. So I've had lovely conversations with Dr. Robert O. Young, who doesn't believe that viruses exist. And then you'll have conversation with someone else and another equally brilliant natural scientist and things who believe something else. And they're all really fascinating. But there's very rarely one answer to things anyway. It's very rarely that simple. And you put it through your own filter system too. You know, does this resonate for me? And that's all going to be dependent on your own level of evolution. So yeah, and I think that if we are able to stop making judgments on things and just understanding that everyone has their own truth, that's going to just make such a difference.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And it's interesting. I say it all the time. One of my favorite quotes is by Aristotle. It's a sign of an intelligent mind when you can entertain an idea without accepting it. And I think what you're doing when you're listening to so many stimulating conversations, you're able to listen to these conversations without judgment, but entertain them. You don't have to accept them and then go listen to somebody else. And I see it a lot in the yoga world too. There's so many times where a teacher said something to me years ago. I didn't quite understand at the moment, but I remembered it. And then like years later, it'll hit me and I'll be like, oh, that's what they meant.
I get it now.
I get it now. So it's like you can kind of store stuff away, but you don't have to have, we're in this weird place in our lives where you have to have an immediate polarizing opinion on something, and you cannot waver. You cannot look across the street. And I remember growing up, and I mean, this was what, 30 or 20 years ago. This wasn't that long ago. We had to study debate in school, where we were given different sides of the same argument that we had to learn how to debate that. And it might not have, you had to debate a side that you might not have agreed on, you know? And I feel like that of course leads to critical thinking skills, which I think a lot of humanity is lacking right now, that we have to be able to have our own critical thinking skills. And no one can give you that. You know, it's like that whole idea of gnosis versus ideo that we see in the early Christian scriptures, where they believed that gnosis or inner knowing was far more superior than ideo or outer knowing. You know, EDO would be PhDs, your education, all that kind of stuff that the world is giving you. But that gnosis, that inner knowing, came from your own practice, your own taking in information and just feeling what you needed to feel. And once you have that gnosis, no one can take it away from you. You're not going to be dependent on somebody else.
I think we're competing against things that we don't even really fully understand or know about, and not to be negative, but we're receiving frequencies and subliminal programming from very advanced technology, and we don't even know it's there. So when you don't have that really strong internal connection or knowing, then you're very much like a leaf in the breeze, just floating around and very vulnerable to all this stuff that's going on. So people need to realize that this stuff is happening, and that we need to build these really strong internal foundations so that we can overcome, you know, all that energetic, it's what do you call it, infiltration, or energetic indoctrination, brainwashing, you know, all that sort of
battlefield, because that's really what this is about, isn't it? This has nothing to do with politics. This has nothing to do with health. This has nothing to do with countries. This is about your spiritual sovereignty. And that when you have that spiritual sovereignty, you know how to like say, I don't know, or no, or let me wait on this. And you could say it without, you could put that boundary up. And you're right. So many people are just going to get pushed around like that. I love that leaf in the breeze scenario, because they've lost that. It's still there. You just gotta find it.
And it comes with the connection to Mother Earth. I saw a wonderful original elder speaking, and she was saying that just lie down on the ground with your stomach, imagining like an umbilical cord going deep into the earth and connecting to Mother Earth, and just stay lying on the ground until you feel that connection really building with Mother Earth. And that, again, is universal consciousness, universal knowing, universal knowledge. When you tap into that Mother Earth energy, which the originals knew how to do so well, that is going to be that source of internal foundation that allows you not to be that leaf flowing around in the breeze.
And when you were saying, go ahead, sorry, Catherine.
Well, it's just so interesting, and that sort of brings me full loop back to what I was saying about the humans not being the center of everything all the time, is because that grounding is so important, and that connection that then connects you to everything that is. And I think, you know, this is where so many of our animals who live in human environments get so wrong, because we get so out of balance, is because we stop them grounding. A typical example is putting metal shoes on horses. I mean, can you imagine? Just completely stops their grounding experience.
So similarly with shoes that we have, a lot of them have got rubber soles, and that disconnects us from the earth on purpose. It's like sunglasses disconnecting us from the sun, and the encodings from the sun on purpose. These were all things that were put in to stop that connection to our divine connection, to stop us evolving.
I stopped wearing sunglasses like a year ago because I found that out.
Yeah, I haven't worn them for ages. Yeah, or clock.
Look at them. Can't wear them.
You know, watches similarly interfere with our energetic field. We tuning into time, we can do that anyway, intuitively, if you don't wear one of these. I mean, I know sometimes for things you need to look, but on the whole, you can do that intuitively, and this can interfere with your energetic field. So, you know, there's so many things like that that have been accepted by us that actually had a nefarious purpose underneath.
It's like, well, dogs can smell time, can't they? Like, dogs know what time, you know, I'm sure everyone who has a dog, your dog knows when you're coming home. Oh, they can't read the clock. They can smell, they know. They don't know the actual 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock. They can smell it.
Inuit elders had the same thing. They would, the husband would go off and hunt, and he'd be gone for a couple of days. And just as he walked into the door, the wife, the mother, would have his food cooking ready to eat the minute he walked in the door. She would know intuitively when he would be coming back home. She'd have it all perfectly, you know, ready for him the minute and he might have been gone 2 days or 3 days or something. You know, it's just that ability that we have that we can regain if we practice it.
Yeah, just getting rid of all the gadgets, all the things, and just, as you say, tuning in. And if you don't use it, you lose it. So we've talked a lot about the 90% junk DNA that we all know is ridiculous. But when you start reusing these skills, it's amazing how quickly they come back again. It's like riding a bike or riding a horse. You never forget, even if you haven't done it for 40, 50 years. But it's so easy to sort of reawaken these bits of our mind, our soul and things, if you practice it.
Yeah, definitely.
And it wasn't that far off. I mean, think about it. What clocks came into play big time with the Industrial Revolution, which was a little over 100 years ago, you know, so with the trains. So we haven't really been tied to clocks for that long. You know, our ancestors, it should not be hard for us to go back and get into that rhythm, you know, of understanding time without the actual time, you know.
When I think of the Industrial Revolution, I always think of the Charles Dickens books. You know, they sum up the energy, the atmosphere of that so well. It's just so sort of dark and bleak and
My favorite story is the Oliver Twist and the 1968 movie, the musical. That was my favorite movie as a kid.
I love those songs.
Yeah, I love to dance.
Food, glorious food.
The workhouses, we soon had child labor laws after that. It was supposed to be a good thing, but it ended up really hindering us, that Industrial Revolution. So
absolutely. Yeah. I think that was a big ploy from the dark as well.
Yeah. You can see so many of these things now, but the good thing is once you're aware of it, you're not going to let that happen again. We're not.
Exactly.
Once you see it, you can't unsee it. Yep.
Yeah.
And the awakening is huge. I mean, you've just got to look at the levels of, numbers in protests around the world, and, you know, millions and millions all over the planet now are gathering, and every week it's building. So this is very exciting, and I think we're just on the verge of this huge awakening for the masses. So that's something that we can maybe spend time visualizing to help it, you know, get over the line.
Yep, we just got to cross that threshold. I know I learned recently that speaking of time, we've been doing this wrong. We've been looking at dates when really we need to be looking at portals, and when certain portals open, which for most humans, that's, even for me, sometimes that's like, what? So that comes back to that, just letting go and having faith, and being like, I don't know, but I have courage and I have faith that it's all going to turn out the way it's supposed to, whatever that looks like, beyond my expectations. So,
yeah. And when you do that, you free up so much emotional space for yourself, because all that time that subconsciously or consciously we're spending worrying, you free up all that time. Oh, my mum's little clock going. And how English is that? And
we're just talking about time, and then the
clock. That's hysterical, but it's amazing how it creates so much time when you stop worrying about things. It's fantastic to do all the wonderful things that you want to.
And it opens up also infinite possibilities that we have absolutely no idea what they could be, because we limit our possibilities by having some sort of expectation of them. And so when you totally release that, you actually get greater opportunities coming into you, because they're even beyond what you would imagine for yourself.
I know. I know we've been on for a little over an hour, ladies. So I know we're winding down. So I know it's getting late for you, Catherine, but I will say too, on top of that, my best friend growing up, her father said something to her once that I have held my whole life. I was sitting there and I heard them say this to her when we were preparing for college, for university, and trying to make those grown-up decisions at like 18 years old, you know, because you're so wise at 18. Her father said, if you knew that you would never fail, what would you do?
Perfect.
If you knew that failing wasn't an option, what would you do?
And the other thing is, if you knew that money wasn't an option too, what would you do? Take money out of the equation as well, and think what you'd do then. You know, if there was no such thing, what would make you really, really happy?
And I think that's a great thing for people walking into this new earth that have lost that sense of self, like to get back. If all these limitations were gone,
yeah, and
I had nothing but success, what would I do?
Yeah.
What would that look like? And you might be surprised. You'd probably get the answer right away.
Perfect thing to ponder, everyone. Perfect thing to ponder when you're lying on the earth. Your belly button. We want to see the pictures, everyone.
Yes, please send us your picture.
And we don't care how cold and wet it is in the UK. That's not an excuse. You'll still do it.
Australians, you've got no excuses.
Georgians, it's 74 degrees outside here, which I know you guys are in Celsius. That's really mild. Like, this is tank top weather. So Georgians have no excuse either to go out there and lie in the grass. So
we'll be posting our selfies tomorrow. So. Oh, that was such fun, ladies. That was such fun. I'm so pleased the internet to go back on again.
I know, that was awesome. That was invigorating for me. For everybody watching, leave us your opinions and your comments down in the comment section below. And I'm going to be posting both Catherine and Medyhne's channel links in the description box below. I know most of you follow them, but for those who don't, I'm going to go ahead and put that down there, and also be posting Medyhne's website. And Catherine, can I post your websites for your animal?
Please too. I've got two. So I'll send you the links to them afterwards. So one of them's my courses on, and the other one's got, I'm just uploading. I'm a bit behind getting all my videos on there, but there's some really good stuff there and recommendations and things like that. So, and I will be doing the same to you guys as well. Thank you so much, ladies.
Of course. If people would like a session with me and they want to mention this show with Catherine and Brice, I can give you a 10% discount as well. So
amazing. Well, I'll put that in the description box too, guys. So awesome. Well, I love both of you ladies so much. It's such an honor to be your friend in this life, be part of your, I know, virtual hug, part of your soul family, to these beautiful, beautiful women. Hopefully soon we'll be able to celebrate in person when we're teleporting to each other, but we won't hold any expectations on when that date is. We know it's coming soon though. And lots of love to everybody watching. As I've said many times on my channel, you guys are just as much a part of these channels as we are. We wouldn't be here having these conversations without you. And I do look forward to seeing your input in the comment section. I do try to read most of the comments just to see what you guys have to say too, because as Ram Dass says, we are just walking each other home, and your opinion is very, very valuable. So please make sure you leave us those in the comment section below. All right, guys, lots of love. Happy New Year.
To everyone.
Bye.